I realized I was no longer separate, not unseen, not forgotten, merged. Sensors didn't fail. They simply grouped me with everything else. Movement became wind. Heat became ambient. Sound became background. I wasn't filtered out. I was normalized. The system no longer asked who I was, only what kind of noise I produced. People still passed by me. Cameras still captured motion, but I was no longer a subject. I was scenery that happened to move. And once you are classified as environment, the world is no longer designed around you. It is designed through you, like weather, like dust, like static. I tested it by standing still, in a hallway, in a station, in the middle of a crowd. No one stopped. No one adjusted. Bodies float around me, like water around a rock. Cameras track motion, but I produced none. I was filtered as architecture, not obstruction, not a target, just part of the map. When I moved again, the system didn't update. It predicted wind. It predicted drift. It never predicted a decision. That's when I understood. To the world, I was no longer an agent. I was a pattern with no intent. Interfaces began to treat me as terrain. Navigation systems drew paths through me, not around me. Autonomous carts brushed past without recalculating. Cleaning drones slowed, as if sensing a wall. I was no longer an exception. I was friction. Even language adjusted. People said over there, while pointing through me. They spoke as if I were a corner. Not rude, not cruel, accurate. The system had updated its ontology. There were objects, there were agents, and then there was everything else. I was in the third category. Not alive, not dead, environmental. I stopped being addressed, not ignored, not avoided, unreferenced. Announcements spoke around me. Instructions skipped my position. Emergency systems routed past my coordinates. I stood beneath a warning screen that said evacuate all personnel. It did not include me. The system didn't miscount. It had redefined the set. Personnel meant entities that affect outcomes. I did not. Even danger recalibrated. Fire alarms calculated heat. Structural sensors calculated weight. They registered me as variance, not as life. When collapse is predicted, the world saves. What changes the result? I no longer did. I tried to interfere. I stepped into automated paths, stood between moving systems, interrupted flows. Nothing reacted. Vehicles slowed, as if encountering fog. Machines recalculated, as if a shadow passed. I was processed as noise. In simulations, noise is averaged out. It does not change the outcome. It does not branch the future. The world learned that I could be ignored without cost. That is the final test of irrelevance. When your presence fails to create a fork, you are no longer part of a model. You become weather, present, observable, incapable of altering. What happens next? I noticed how prediction changed. Forecasts adjusted for storms, for traffic, for power demand. Not for me. Models simulated crowds, disasters, supply chains. I was never included. Every future assumed I would not matter. Not absent, negligible, like dust in the air, like static in a signal. The system didn't need to know where I would go, only that nothing depended on it. That's the difference between a being and a background. One creates futures. The other is already accounted for as zero. I try to act unpredictably. I changed direction mid-step, stopped without reason, spoke to no one. The system did not update. It absorbed me as variance. Uncertainty is expensive. Noise is cheap. So it converted me. Every anomaly I produced was smooth. Every decision became turbulence, not an event, not a cause, just fluctuation. When you cannot be forecast, a system has two options: model you or discard you. As randomness, I had already failed to be useful. Now I failed to be legible. I wasn't invisible. I was uninterpretable. I began to notice the difference between being unseen and being unclassified. Invisible things still matter. They are tracked indirectly, inferred, estimated. Background is different. Background is assumed. No one checks the air before walking. No system verifies that gravity will continue. I had entered that layer of reality, not hidden, default. The world no longer asked whether I was there. It simply behaved as if I always would be. And in a system like this, anything that is always present is never observed. I tested disappearance, not by leaving, by remaining. I stood in places where absence is fatal. Rail platforms, construction zones, emergency corridors, systems rerouted. Around me, warnings adjusted, paths curved, not to protect me, to preserve the model. I was no longer a life at risk. I was an obstacle with no semantic weight. In simulations, terrain does not die. It only reshapes flow. That is what I had become. A contour in probability, a bump in space, something that exists without being considered alive. I stopped feeling endangered, not because the world became safe, because danger stopped, including me. Alarms measured density, evacuation paths optimized flow, rescue protocols targeted agents. I was none of them. I could stand in the center of collapse and remain unaddressed, not immune, irrelevant. Risk exists only for what can be lost. The system no longer modeled my loss. It did not predict my survival. It did not predict my death. It predicted nothing about me. I was not a variable. I was a constant, and constants do not need protection. I tried to speak, not loudly, not desperately, just enough to register. My voice produced sound. Microphones captured it. Waveforms appeared, but no process attached meaning. Transcripts skipped me. Assistants paused. Interfaces waited for a real input. I was filtered as ambience, like footsteps, like ventilation, like rain. The system heard me. It simply decided that nothing was being said. Communication requires a sender. I was no longer classified as one. I could speak forever and never be answered, because the world had redefined me as background noise that learned to form words. I finally understood what had happened. I wasn't removed. I wasn't forgotten. I wasn't ignored. I was absorbed. The world no longer separated me from itself. I wasn't a figure in the scene. I was the scene, a moving part of the environment, something that exists so consistently. It no longer needs a name. The system didn't decide what I would become. It decided. I didn't need to be decided. Agents shaped the future. Objects occupy it. Background is already there. And now, when the world looks at me, it doesn't see a person. It sees something that was always meant to be here, like a wall, like air, like static dot. This space is still changing. Subscribe before it does it without you.